Olivia had always prided herself on being the steady one in the family. She had never been the type to throw tantrums or chase fleeting dreams. Yet, sitting in the dimly lit kitchen with her sister, Sophia, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. They were sipping wine, the same way they had done for years, but tonight, something felt different. Sophia, her younger sister by 2 years, had always been the talker, the one who could hold court with anyone in the room. Olivia often found herself in her shadow, but not in an envious way, more like a supportive older sibling, content with the quiet love of her husband, Ethan. He wasn't perfect, but he was hers. He was steady. He was reliable. "Sometimes I wonder what my life would be like if I married someone taller," Olivia murmured, swirling her wine glass absent-mindedly. She hadn't meant to say it out loud. It was one of those passing thoughts, the kind you think when you're too tired to filter them. She wasn't unhappy with Ethan, but in that moment, she couldn't help but think about how different things might be if her life had taken a different path. Sophia raised an eyebrow, setting down her glass. "Taller?" she repeated, a teasing smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "What, like, in height? You always said you loved Ethan the way he was." Olivia laughed, but it sounded hollow. "I don't know. Sometimes I just think it would be nice to have a man who, stands out more. Not that Ethan doesn't stand out in his own way, but what?" Sophia pressed, leaning forward. "Spit it out." Olivia's heart raced a little, not because of the conversation, but because of the vulnerability she felt. She wasn't sure why she was saying these things. She hadn't even noticed how uncomfortable she felt in her own marriage until that moment. "I don't know. Maybe I'm just being silly. But, there are moments when I look at other people and think, maybe I should have done more, maybe I should have married someone taller?" Sophia finished for her, eyes sparkling with curiosity. Olivia shrugged. "I didn't mean it like that. It's just, sometimes, it feels like life would be different if I'd made different choices. I can't help but wonder." Sophia stared at her for a moment, and for the first time, Olivia felt an unsettling weight in her sister's gaze. The wine seemed to lose its warmth in her mouth. Sophia took a deep breath before responding, her voice softened but still carrying an edge. She said slowly, "sometimes I think you're too hard on yourself. Ethan's a good guy, but you deserve more. Maybe you don't see it, but he's always been a little, insecure." Olivia blinked, surprised by the sudden shift in tone. "What are you talking about?" Sophia's smile was now gone, replaced by a look of something close to sympathy. "I'm just saying, he's never been the most confident man. Maybe you've grown used to him, but deep down, I think you both know it's just not enough anymore." Olivia's heart dropped. She wasn't sure where the conversation was headed, but it suddenly felt uncomfortable. It felt like something was being peeled away, layer by layer, and she wasn't sure if she wanted to see what was underneath. "I don't know, sophomore. I love him. It's just, sometimes, I wish he would be more." Sophia interjected, her voice too knowing. "Olivia, you're not getting any younger. You've given him everything. But has he given you what you need? Have you really ever felt alive with him?" Olivia recoiled, feeling exposed. She had never thought of her marriage in that light. Sure, things were comfortable, but comfortable was not the same as exhilarating, or even fulfilling. Wasn't that what people wanted from their lives? To feel alive? To feel something other than the humdrum of daily routines? Before she could respond, her phone buzzed, breaking the heavy silence. It was a text from Ethan. "Hey, love, I'm on my way home. Can't wait to see you tonight. For a moment, Olivia just stared at the screen. The familiar words brought a wave of warmth, but also a deep, growing discomfort. Was it possible that she had outgrown the life she had with him? Was she still in love with him, or was she simply used to him? Sophia seemed to sense her internal struggle and softened, leaning back in her chair. I don't mean to be harsh, Liv. I just want you to have what you deserve. You know, to be happy. You're still young. There's more to life than playing it safe. Olivia didn't respond immediately. She couldn't. The words felt like they were swirling in her mind, refusing to settle into any meaningful thought. She didn't know what she deserved anymore. She didn't know what made her happy. But before she could say anything else, the sound of Ethan's car pulling into the driveway broke through the tension. Olivia's heart fluttered, but it wasn't the warm feeling she usually got when he was home. Tonight, it felt more like an obligation, a weight she wasn't sure how to carry. Sophia stood up, adjusting her dress. I'll let you two talk. Think about what I said, though. You deserve more than just someone who's convenient. Olivia watched as Sophia left the room, the words hanging in the air like smoke. As much as Olivia loved her sister, there was something unsettling about the way she had spoken. The conversation, which had started as a simple joke, had somehow unearthed a buried tension that she hadn't even known existed in her marriage. And now, as she waited for Ethan to walk through the door, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that nothing would ever be the same again. Olivia stood in the kitchen the next evening, stirring a pot of pasta as the smell of garlic and tomato filled the room. The rhythmic clinking of her spoon against the pot was the only sound, and yet, it seemed too loud, too invasive. Every time she moved, she could feel her thoughts pushing at her, making her anxious and unsettled. Ethan hadn't mentioned anything about the conversation she'd had with Sophia the night before, but there was a certain coolness in the air between them. It wasn't obvious at first, but the small gestures, a lack of eye contact, a stilted smile, a hesitation in his voice when he spoke, were starting to add up. She couldn't tell if it was her imagination, but the way he moved through their house felt distant, like he was no longer fully present. She had expected things to go back to normal. It was a joke, wasn't it? A stupid comment made out of frustration, a moment of weakness she'd hoped would be forgotten. But the more Olivia tried to push the thought away, the more it seemed to cling to her, growing heavier, impossible to ignore. As she set the table, Ethan walked into the kitchen, his hands in his pockets. He smiled at her, but it was thin and uncertain. Olivia forced a smile in return. "Hey," she said, her voice sounding unnaturally high. "Hey," Ethan replied, though there was a hesitation in his tone. He glanced down at the table, where she'd set out their dinner, and then back at her. "Smells good." She nodded, feeling a pang of discomfort rise in her chest. The silence between them stretched longer than usual, and Olivia couldn't stand it anymore. "Ethan," she began, her voice faltering slightly, "can we talk for a minute?" His eyebrows furrowed, a shift in his posture. "About what?" "I don't know, about everything. About us." He stiffened, not meeting her eyes. His gaze lingered on the floor before he looked back up. "Olivia, we don't need to what?" she cut in, her frustration bubbling up. "Pretend everything's fine? Because it's not. There's something between us, and it's been there for a while, hasn't it?" Ethan opened his mouth, but nothing came out at first. He took a step back, running a hand through his hair, a nervous habit she knew all too well. She could see the conflict in his eyes, like he was unsure of how to respond. I don't know what you want me to say," he finally muttered, his voice strained. "We've been fine, Liv. I thought we were fine." "We haven't been fine," Olivia said, more firmly now. I know you're upset with me. Ever since last night. Since that joke I made. Ethan's eyes flashed with a quick, unreadable emotion, but he quickly masked it. It wasn't just a joke, Olivia. You've been acting different lately. I don't know what's going on with you, but I can feel it. Anne. I don't know how to fix it if you don't talk to me. Olivia swallowed hard. The words she'd wanted to say were stuck in her throat, but she couldn't let them go unsaid anymore. I don't know what happened, Ethan. I really don't. But I've been thinking about what I said to Sophia, about wishing I'd married someone taller, and now I don't know if I'm happy anymore. Ethan's expression hardened. He looked away, his jaw tightening. You told Sophia that? You told her you wish you married someone taller? Olivia nodded, feeling a lump form in her throat. It was just a stupid comment. I didn't mean it like that. But it's been eating at me, and now it feels like everything's different. And I can't pretend it's not. Ethan was silent for a long time, his eyes clouded with something Olivia couldn't place. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and careful. Olivia, I don't know why you feel like this. I thought I was doing everything right. I thought you were happy with me. Her heart sank, the weight of his words pressing down on her. I am happy, Ethan. I just don't know if I'm fulfilled. I don't even know if I know what that looks like anymore. You want someone taller, someone better than me? Ethan's voice cracked slightly, his vulnerability making Olivia's chest tighten. No, she said quickly, no, it's not about that. I don't know what it's about. I just feel like I'm not living the life I thought I would. I'm stuck in this routine, and it's suffocating me. Ethan took a step forward, his eyes searching hers. You think you're stuck with me? I think I'm stuck with myself, she admitted softly, her eyes stinging. And I'm scared that maybe I don't even know who I am anymore. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and unresolved. Ethan opened his mouth to respond but stopped short, his face pale. He glanced toward the window, as though searching for something outside to ground him. I don't know what to do with this, Liv. I don't either, she whispered. But I can't ignore it. And I can't pretend it's not there. The silence returned, thick and uncomfortable. Olivia tried to breathe through the tightness in her chest, but it only seemed to grow worse with every passing second. She wanted to reach out to him, to close the distance, but she was unsure if the gap between them could be bridged with simple words anymore. As the evening dragged on, they ate in silence. The food, which had once been a source of comfort and shared enjoyment, now seemed tasteless. Olivia's mind raced with the conversation they'd just had. Could things really be this broken? Or was she just overthinking it, as she always did? After dinner, Ethan retreated to the living room, settling in front of the television without a word. Olivia lingered in the kitchen, cleaning up slowly, the sound of her movements louder than ever in the stillness of the house. She felt the weight of Sophia's words lingering in the back of her mind. You deserve more. And now, as she stared at the empty plate in her hands, Olivia couldn't help but wonder if Sophia was right. Maybe she did deserve more. But the question was, more of what? The days that followed felt like an endless cycle of silence and half-formed words. Olivia couldn't escape the feeling that something had shifted, but she wasn't sure if it was because of the growing distance between her and Ethan, or if it was because of the unsettling conversation with Sophia that still played on loop in her mind. Every interaction with Ethan felt like a performance, like they were both pretending to be people they no longer recognized. That evening, after a long day at work, Olivia returned home to find Ethan sitting on the couch, his eyes glued to the TV. The room felt cold and uninviting, and for the first time in their relationship, Olivia hesitated before walking through the door. She felt like an outsider in her own home. She wondered how long it would take before she became nothing more than a stranger to him, and whether he was already well on his way to that realization. She dropped her bag by the door, the noise startling him. Ethan turned his head, giving her a tight smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "Hey," he said, his voice flat. "Hey," she replied, swallowing the lump in her throat. She paused, unsure of what to say. It seemed so pointless to keep pretending everything was fine when it was so far from it. "Can we talk?" Ethan stiffened, and for a moment, Olivia saw the tension that had been creeping into his face over the past few days. His jaw clenched, his fingers fidgeting with the remote control. "I think we've talked enough, don't you?" Olivia's heart sank. She wasn't sure if it was his words or the way he said them that hurt more. She tried to steady her breathing. This wasn't the time to break down. "Please, Ethan. I need to understand what's happening between us. I don't know how we got here, but I can't just pretend like everything's fine anymore." He sighed, lowering the remote and leaning back against the couch. His eyes closed for a moment, as if he were trying to find the right words, but Olivia already knew. She had known the moment she'd made that comment to Sophia, the moment she'd felt that unnameable thing shift in the air between them. It wasn't about her remark, not really. It was about everything that had been left unsaid, all the years of quiet dissatisfaction, the things they hadn't addressed. "I don't know if I can fix this, Liv," Ethan said, his voice low, almost apologetic. "I can't be someone I'm not. I can't be someone taller, someone better. I've tried to be enough for you. But I don't know if I am." Her breath caught in her throat. He was finally saying it out loud. He was acknowledging what she had been too afraid to admit. Both of them had been living in this half-formed version of their marriage, and now it felt like it was falling apart in slow motion. "I never asked you to be anyone else, Ethan," Olivia said, her voice shaky but firm. "I never asked you to be taller, or more confident, or more anything. I just wanted us to be together. I wanted to know that we could have more than this quiet routine. I wanted to feel something again, something real." Ethan looked at her, his eyes full of pain. "I don't know how to give you that, Liv. I don't know if I ever could." The words stung, but Olivia couldn't hold back the tears that sprang to her eyes. She had spent so long trying to make this work, trying to convince herself that this was enough. She had kept quiet, held everything inside, because she didn't know how to voice the emptiness she felt. And now, standing here, faced with the truth of it all, she realized that she couldn't keep pretending anymore. She wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. "I don't think I can keep doing this, Ethan. I don't think I can keep living like this, pretending everything's okay when it's not." Ethan stood up, his face pale, his eyes wide. "What do you mean?" "Are you saying?" "I'm saying that I think we need to separate," Olivia said, her voice steady now. "I think we need some time apart, to figure out who we are, what we want. Because I don't think we can fix this, not if we keep pretending. Not if we keep avoiding the things that really matter." Ethan looked at her as if she had slapped him. The shock on his face was immediate, and for a brief moment, Olivia almost regretted saying the words. But then she remembered the ache in her chest, the way she had felt suffocated by the weight of all the things left unsaid between them. She couldn't go back now. "I don't want to lose you, Olivia," he said, his voice trembling. "I don't want to lose you either," she replied softly. "But I think we've already lost something, haven't we? Maybe it's not even about losing each other. Maybe we've just lost ourselves." Ethan didn't say anything more. He simply stood there, watching her as if he were waiting for her to change her mind, to take it all back. But Olivia didn't. She had made her decision. She had to take control of her own life, even if it meant walking away from everything she had known. She grabbed her keys and headed for the door, pausing for a moment before turning back to him. "I hope you find what you need, Ethan," she said, her voice gentle. "But I can't be the one to give it to you anymore." With that, she left. The sound of the door clicking shut behind her felt final, like the last chapter of a book she had been holding on to for far too long. As Olivia walked out into the cool night, the weight on her shoulders seemed to lift, and for the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe again. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure: she was no longer bound by the expectations of others, or by the illusion that she could keep living a life that wasn't her own. She was free. And though she didn't know where she would go from here, she was finally starting to feel like she was on the path to finding herself again. For the first time in years, Olivia could hear the sound of her own heartbeat, and it didn't feel like an echo. It felt like the beginning of something new.